Okay, it's 2 o'clock and I will call this special meeting of the Santa Barbara County Board of Education to order. And I'm going to start by mentioning that we have audio interpretation with Hugo is with us today. So welcome, Hugo. Would you like to make your announcement?
My name is Hugo Santos, and I'm here on behalf of Bridging Voices, and I'm here to provide interpretation from English and Spanish. So anyone of you would like to hear this event in Spanish, let me know. Soy Hugo Santos, estoy aquí representando a Bridging Voices. Si alguno de ustedes prefiere escuchar este evento en español, por favor, háganmelo saber para que les pueda acercar un dispositivo y puedan escuchar todo el evento en español. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugo. And now, Mr. Porter would do the Pledge of Allegiance.
So I ask you to join me as we salute our community. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Porter. All right, and I've already introduced Hugo. We've taken care of that. So Anna, roll call.
Okay, Mrs. Carty. Here. Mrs. Daney.
Here.
Mrs. DeWord.
Here.
Mrs. Frost.
Here.
Mr. Howell.
Here.
And Mr. Porter.
And present.
Thank you.
All right. I know of no changes to the agenda for today, so we'll move right on to President's comment and board comments. And today I would like to make my comment specifically to our dear Peter McDougall and how much I personally will miss his presence here. I've known Peter for over 20 years, served with him on the Santa Barbara Foundation, and he followed me as chair there. And you could say so much about Peter, but one thing will always stick in my mind about Peter. He normally would frame his remarks 1, 2, and 3, and 1 would always be to commend the staff on the excellent job they did putting together the presentation. And I will never, ever, I miss him for that reason more than anything. So I hope he will be able to join us at some point, or we can work on some type of recognition of his time on the board. So, to be determined. All right, any other board comments today?
I just echo your sentiments. He will be missed.
Mm-hmm.
I was getting ready to use the word echo, so I can't use that. Judy's comment about 3. I've been on a couple of boards with Peter before this one. One of my law partners was on a board with him, and both have a lot of affection for Peter. But if either of us had been at a meeting with Peter, would go into the other's office and say, had a really great meeting, and one of the speakers talked about 3 things. And my partner said, oh, you were meeting with Peter.
Yeah.
But it really worked. He was very eloquent.
Yes, definitely. Very good.
I concur. He was. And I met him probably closer to maybe 30 years ago. And I thought, is he one of the Kennedys? He just had that aura about him that I quickly found out he was one of the most persuasive people I've ever met. And that there was no. When Peter came to you with a question or a favor or a suggestion, it was yes. And I remember him explicitly talking me into chairing a team for Santa Barbara City College fundraising at a time when the last thing in the world I wanted to do was pick up a phone 500 times and call people to get support for Santa Barbara City College. They'd never done it before. Sure, Peter, I'll do it. Oh, and you want me to assemble a team? Okay, and how much did you put? Oh, done. And that's how I went with him. He was a lion. We're talking about it as if it was past tense, but
Well, he's gone from here.
Years in front of him, and I pray that he stays well, and
Yes.
we will miss him.
Yes. Okay. Then moving right along, do we have any public comment on the agenda today? If there is, it has to be directed only to items that are on the agenda. None. All right, information item. Anna has left at our places hard copies of the handouts for today, and the first one is the correspondence, the attachment of the letter that Peter gave Susan on July 7th. Okay, and that is primarily, I think that is why we are meeting today. So it is directed towards how in the world do we fill that vacancy? We don't replace Peter, we just fill the vacancy. So you've seen his letter, and now we're going to discuss how to fill the vacancy. And we basically have two options. One is a special election, and the other is a provisional appointment. And I'll ask Susan to fill in the blanks on what that means.
Sounds great. Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to see all of you. So we have, the board will have many decisions to make today, including whether or not to have a special election or a provisional appointment. And in the memo that Austin Payne and Craig Price provided several weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, they talked about that special election. So just to repeat that information, the election would be with the Santa Barbara County elections. It would occur March 2023. The cost, the estimate that was received by elections for us was between $150,000 and $200,000 for that special election, for in-person polling, with an additional $80,000 to $90,000 for at-home mail-in ballot options. So that's one lane. Bruce, yes.
So why can we not piggyback on the November 2022 election cycle? I assume it's a timing issue.
Excuse me, was the last part?
I assume it's a timing issue or something like that.
It's exactly a timing issue in terms of a number of days and the window days, but I'm going to ask Austin to give us the exact numbers.
You're exactly right. It all comes down to timing, and right now we're too close to the November election, so the Ed Code statute that governs it, it's 5091, says if you're within a certain period of time, then it goes to the next election, and that happens to be in March of next year. So the option at this point would be to make a provisional appointment who would serve to the end of his term, which would be through 2024.
Maybe this is the wrong time to discuss it, but it just bothers me a little bit that we would make a provisional appointment that would last longer than one half of a full term. But I don't know how to fix that without spending a huge amount of money.
I think, well, the two options are the two options. So that's according to the,
unfortunately.
yeah.
There's the Ed Code statute is really interesting. Basically, if the vacancy had occurred a little bit earlier, it would have gone to the November 22 election, and it could have been filled that way, and you wouldn't even have the option to make a provisional appointment. But because the vacancy occurred when it did, we're inside that 130-day period.
And to follow that, if it's March 2023, by definition, the vacancy remains between now and March.
Yeah, that's right. So the way that we'd end up in March is if you either decided to do an election, fill the seat, or if you fail to make an appointment within 60 days, then Susan would be required by the Ed Code to actually call for an election, and it would take place the first Tuesday after the first Monday in March.
Which would mean maintaining 6 people, 6 positions on the board until that election. Okay.
I wanted to see if there's any, process, this is an opportunity to process out loud, so if there's anything more on that at this time, give you space.
$300,000 is too much.
Yeah.
Would someone like to make a motion that we proceed with provisional appointment? Or
So move that we make a provisional appointment to extend through Peter's term of 2024.
Second. Second, Mary Beth. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion passes. So now we get to go into peeling back the layers of the onion to what does having a provisional appointment mean? What is the process, and what will other decisions will we have to make? Susan.
You got it.
You're
All
on.
right. So we provided the board with some draft materials for consideration. Rather than come without any, we wanted to put something down for you to consider. And so put some dates together and some committee actions together for you as well. I thought what I would do is start with the calendar. If you have it in front of you from what Anna provided, it's in a goldenrod color, and we'll go through that and, of course, stop at any time. So we have the 26th on the calendar, July 26th, that's today. Tomorrow, if we wanted to, or tonight, based on the board's decision which you just made, we wanted to couple the announcement of Dr. McDougall's retirement or resignation with how the board intends to fill the seat. So that announcement will go out likely tomorrow to the media. And then in it, we'll talk about the window opening for the applications to be received. Right now, the draft date for that window to open, so just a draft date, is August 8th. And would close the 5 o'clock on August 17th. So it's a 10-day window where the application would be open. If it's available before that, we would be glad to post it before that. The intention, by the way, is to point everyone to the website. There'll be a specific page for a person to apply. So it'll be both on the home page, it'll also be on the board web page, but then it'll be a separate page so it doesn't get confused. And it'll have information about the trustee area, the application, and all of the things that gets decided will be on that page of SBCEO. Okay, so that would be tomorrow. Between tomorrow and the regular board meeting for next Thursday, the thought is that the Board Organization and Development Committee would meet to go over the materials that you're seeing today, but in greater detail. Really pick it apart and have greater detail. But then come Thursday for the regular board meeting to provide and share for the whole board all of those materials. So you'd see these draft materials, but in more of a final form. So to be more specific, August 1, 2, or 3, depending on availability. Could also be July, well, it needs to be 1, 2, or 3 so that we could put the notice together with 72 hours. But they would review the timeline, information that would be in the application, and the interview questions in a more final form. The board organization committee members are currently comprised of Maggie Daney as chair, and Joe Howell as a member, and Peter McDougall was a member as well. So we'll need to talk about that committee as well.
And Susan and I talked about intentionally waiting to talk about filling Peter's position on this committee so that everyone could get an idea of what's going to be involved if they were to serve on that committee. So the first thing would be that there will be a meeting next week.
Yeah.
So that's one.
Yeah, that's one.
More to follow.
Okay, great. So then on Thursday's regular board meeting, we'll have this again on the agenda, but then it will be really to review all of the materials that the board organization committee has basically finalized. Then on the 8th, if we go with that date, the application or the website and all of the links will be open for anyone to apply, and it will remain open through August 17th. It could be the 18th as well, just for wiggle room, but what we're wanting to do is if the Board Organization Committee does meet on the 19th, I think myself and Anna, our team needs some time to download them and, check trustee areas. So we're wanting a little bit of time. Of course, an unknown factor is how many applications there'll be. If there's one, that's one thing. If there's 10, that's another thing. So we don't know. All right, so you can see some just notes here too, where we would post the agenda for the Board Organization Committee on the August 16th in preparation for the Board Organization Committee to meet on the 19th or 22nd or 23rd, 24th. There's some dates there that we have not scheduled, those meetings. And during that time, these are obviously open meetings that anyone could attend, but they would be reviewing the applications and selecting candidates for a final interview. I mean, these are some of the details that we'll want to discuss today, but that's really the intent there. Reviewing the applications, including ensuring that the applicants are from the correct trustee area. I want to pause here and talk about the correct trustee area because this individual would be serving out Peter's current term. This individual would need to reside in Peter's current trustee area, not the newly established and adjusted trustee areas.
Why is that? I mean, that's a big difference.
It is a big difference, and so I checked, double-checked and triple-checked in terms of the serving out the current term, and the current term being what was established in 2020 or what was in place in 2020 when Peter was elected would need to be served out. Then in 2024, it would become the new trustee area, correct? Okay, so there again, having the website be separate from any other website would be important so we could post the trustee area. The trustee areas are actually in your packet here, and you'll notice that it looks a little bit not specific because at the time we had trustee areas established before the most recent changes when we had more of a Google map display. We didn't have that technology previously, so these are pictures of PDFs and then zoomed in trustee areas as well. So we'll need to work with county elections to be very specific.
Joe's favorite kind of thing.
That's right. Drawn with crayon, I think he said at one point.
And
Yeah.
Ultimately, with, I don't know anyone would remember this, but we actually had, in Lompoc, had someone who was
Yes.
appointed and served and was terrific in their, I don't know what the error was, but it was wrong and she had to step down and be replaced. So it was just unfortunate for everyone and an honest mistake, and I'm not sure what the cause was. But here, I know the maps, the 2010 maps, are a challenge to understand from a map standpoint. However, the certainty would be that a candidate's address could be put in, their home address could be put in the 2020 and 2010 information and have absolute confirmation
Yes.
that their address is in Peter's old district.
Yes. Yeah. We would want to, excuse me, go ahead.
Oh, I just think in addition, probably they should know that if they put their address in the 2020 trustee map, that they might be not in the current trustee.
That's
So I
right.
think that needs to be really clarified for people.
That's yeah.
Yeah.
We just don't want anyone to be
No.
surprised.
Yeah.
And we don't want to be blindsided by it either.
Yeah. That's right. So we'll provide the maps, but we're wanting to do a double check. So in other words, have the applicant apply understanding the trustee area, and then on the other hand, we will check too with county elections that the applicants, that's part of that review process before coming to final considerations.
One of the remaining holes is if somebody gets a hold of the new map,
Yes.
then he or she may count themselves out because they thought they weren't eligible. So maybe we should think about taking down our current map off the website for a couple of weeks, just so somebody doesn't think that that's the right one for this election. I'm just shooting from the hip.
But if it's on a dedicated website page, you can put the correct map.
It seems to me if we're clear about it,
I agree.
they can see it. I mean, there are other reasons people are consulting the maps. There are elections that are about to, I mean, there are a lot of things tied to that map. So I think we just need to be absolutely clear, because hearing Susan say that is like, wait, how can that be? Well, it can be, and it is. So.
Well, and I think another important factor is that we would prefer that we get applicants who could run in
Exactly.
2024, and if they don't have the new map, they won't be able to determine that.
That would be in the ideal world.
Yeah, which we all don't live in.
Maybe just add something to that, the current.
Current.
Do not use this map for the,
For this
application
year,
for this
yeah.
one.
Yeah.
That way we don't take it
So
down.
be really.
Exactly.
I'm looking over at Cammy and Ally. Okay, got it. Good, great.
One more thing is that I don't think we should prevent a person from applying,
No,
and that shouldn't be a factor in our consideration if they're not going to be in that.
No.
just don't want
Oh,
them
correct, for 2024,
misunderstanding.
They just
yeah,
need to
no.
understand that they won't be able to run in 2024.
But
Right,
that's
right,
their
yeah.
choice.
That's right. That's a good point. Okay, great. So let's see,
So
where
that's-
did we?
We were on
So
the
then we
19th.
have, right, interview candidates, or, excuse me, let me look back here. I think it was on August 19th, 22, 23, 24. There's going to be a discussion, I'm sure, a decision that would need to be made related to why we have a note on August 23rd and a different note on August 25th related to a meeting on August 26th. And so where that is, let me kind of skip over and come back to it. On the 26th or the 29th as an alternative morning, there would be interviews, it seems, for the candidate and some discussion and decisions made by the board for a board appointment on September 1st. Again, there's 60 days to fill the seat. That 60 days is up on September 5th, so it seemed just timely to use the September 1st board meeting to appoint that individual. So rather than have interviews take place on the 1st and discussion and an appointment, we wanted to reserve the 1st for inviting that individual to come and take their seat on the 1st, rather than have that process happen on the 1st. And that's why you have the 26th and the 29th as interview dates and final discussion and determination. So at that point, either the board organization committee, depending on what the board decides, would hold those interviews, perhaps come to one or two individuals that they would recommend, however the board would want to decide, or it would be a full board interview of the final candidates. Again, an unknown factor being, is there one candidate for this or 20? We don't know. But there's some decision-making to happen around the 26th and 29th so that there could be an appointment on September 1st.
If the board wants to be involved with interviewing candidates that the board organizational development committee whittles it down to. So the board organizational development committee would do the screening, first round of interviews, come up with a smaller pool, assuming there's more than one.
Right.
And then if the board wants to interview those applicants, it would have to be at least 4 of us would have to be able to be there to do that, because that would be a quorum of our board of 6.
And that would be on the 26th instead of the board organization committee meeting. It would be a special board.
Yeah, or on the 29th.
Right.
To be a special
Understood.
meeting.
And it would have to be a special board meeting.
Before we go to our regularly scheduled board
Right.
meeting on the 1st.
If the board is acceptable with having the board organizational development committee whittle it all the way down to the final person and do all the interviews, then there would be no special board meeting. There would be a special board interview committee meeting for them to do that work. Is that perfectly unclear?
No, it's clear.
Okay. So,
That was the calendar. I mean,
That's
it's
the
calendar,
calendar.
and you've seen it, you've had a day to see this book in advance. We're talking about it now, and there's processing. And if it's okay with you, I'd be glad to go through some of these other items as well, so then you can have the full picture before you have deliberations.
At some point, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about whether we're going to have the committee doing a lot of this or the board
doing some of
in
it.
total being all or some of it.
Yes,
Peel the onion first.
yes.
What was that? Peel the onion, yes,
We're
exactly.
peeling the onion.
Yes. So if you're looking at your materials, there's a tan handout, says draft process to fill vacancy for trustee area 2 by provisional appointment. And most of all of this actually has been covered now with the calendar. So you can see what the draft ideas are for the Board of Organization Development Committee meetings. We'll be publicizing the information both in a press release, as I shared, coming out tomorrow, and then we'll have social media as well as the SDCEO website. The application, the draft dates right now, open process August 8th, deadline to apply August 17th. The application, and you'll see the draft talks about both questions to respond to plus a resume, and then interviews with an interview date to be determined here, Friday or Monday. Some sample interview questions that I think that rather than get into the details here, the committee could decide if that's where we go, to talk about what the questions would look like. A provisional appointment on page 2, Thursday, September 1st at 2 o'clock. They would be taking an oath for that newly appointed board member through 2024. And then by law, we would be posting that provisional appointment within 10 days of that appointment being made in newspaper. So that's what this speaks of. The 2 maps that you have are the trustee areas that are currently what Peter was elected to serve in. So you have those 2. One is zoomed out, trustee area 2, and then one's a little bit more zoomed in, all in light blue. So those are the maps. Those would be the ones that would be posted. You can see in a more of a banana vanilla color. Oh, let me just see if there's any questions there.
Which one is the 2010?
These are both the 2010.
Both 2010?
Correct.
Okay.
So the one that has the whole county is the whole county view, and then we have. All right. Then in more of that vanilla or banana, we have the draft application to fill a vacancy on the board. This is what would be on the website as well. Dates, the process, eligibility, the application itself on page 2, which has all the contact information. This would be made public to anyone who would want to access this, but we would redact the specific contact information and some of the questions that we are asking for responses, and then a resume. And I think that is the onion.
Until we have questions.
Yeah.
So, what we would like to discuss first is what is the preference of the board in the role of the Budget Organizational Development Committee and the role, if any, of the board in the future process up to the appointment on the 1st. Thoughts?
I'm just going to put it out there. We haven't gone through this process in a really, really long time. And we're kind of charting new territory, if you will, to some extent. So Joe and I, or the committee right now, and we need at least a third person to fill that committee out. We have committees so that we don't encumber the full board. When we sit on boards, we have committees that don't encumber the entire board, and you have the confidence in your committee members. Having said that, I welcome the full board's participation either way, so. How's that for a non-answer?
In terms of efficiency, so generally any board member can attend any committee
Sure.
meeting he or she wishes. So,
Without a vote.
without a vote, correct.
Ex officio.
Yeah, good point. But I mean, they're open. So a third person needs to be designated for sure. The big unknown, are there 10 candidates or 2 candidates? And it's exponentially harder to process multiple candidates and to really give everyone a fair shake in the interview, considering their application, et cetera. So that's a big unknown, and we won't know that till the 17th, right? I mean, I'm sure we're going to get some before that, as early as the 8th, but as of the 17th. I think it seemed to me the most efficient approach is to, and in the, looking back, there's a lot of work to be done that first week in August of timeline,
We didn't get to the
information,
interviews.
interview questions, et cetera. No substantive, we don't know who, what we are deciding, we don't know how many it will apply to. So there is no preference, no anything, because we're all going in the blind at that point. I think the board organization committee, focusing on that, if someone wants to attend, could, so a recommendation would be that we start with the board organization committee with a new third member in early August to work on the details. If board members want to attend, they're invited to attend. Do we need to make the decision? Do we need to act now, or, oh, we have a board meeting on the 4th?
Correct.
So we can report on the 4th. That's the answer, I think. We report on the 4th, what our thoughts are, timeline, information. We report that out to the board on the 4th. It seems to me we could make a decision at that time.
But the first step, as I understand it, is we need a third member.
Yes.
Oh, right, but I'm assuming a third.
Yeah, we're taking care of that. We're taking care of that. Would you prefer to do that first?
I would.
Sure.
All right, then we will. Normally, the chair or president of the board makes the appointments on committees every December. So whomever is appointed to this committee will only serve through December. The same with the legal committee, because Peter's term would be up for those committees in December. I am more than happy to step in and fill that position, but I also want to open it up to Michelle and Bruce and Mary Beth for their input on if they would like to volunteer to step forward and be on the board organizational committee.
Through December.
Pardon?
Through December.
Through December with, hopefully, the work that's identified in August being the crux of it.
This really isn't the purpose of this meeting, but would that same person then step in and fill the position on the
Legal? No, no. We'll do that at a later time. We got enough on our plate for today.
Peace.
And right now,
Peace.
there's no legal
Peace.
matters, so we can hold off on that.
So in a nutshell, third member of this committee's basic responsibility would be to commit to meeting somewhere in that first week of August, first, second, or third. And the purpose of that meeting is just to review all the material, come back to the board with a synopsis of what's in front of us.
I think, excuse me, I'd say synopsis, but having done the
Done.
detail work, yeah.
And then having making the decisions going forward. And then on August 19th to select from the pool of submitted applications. And then at that point, using the determinations made by the committee in that first week, whether or not it goes to the full board or decisions are made within that committee. Is that accurate? And then the interviews would be either the 26th or the 29th. And the decision would be made directly following those, and then on September 1st. Okay.
Okay, I have a question. I have a question.
Yes.
So is the board organization committee, are those Brown Act meetings?
They are.
So they'll be agendized?
Correct.
So if there's a third person appointed and then any board members may attend, they may not participate, they may not be able to add to the conversation, they're just there to listen, they're not part of the discussion?
They can make comments and, they can make comments just like a public member.
Yeah, but is it a 3-minute public comment and then they're just not, or is this going to be a
Dialogue.
strict meeting with the Brown Act and where, they have order? That's just a question I have about how that is. The other question I have is that at our regular board meeting on the 4th, to follow up on Mary Beth Carty's, I just understood that the committee is going to be formed for that first 3 days to have their meeting, but then the regular board, we won't know what the number of applications, because that comes later.
Right.
But I wanted to just make a recommendation. Just for me, I feel like first of all, in selecting candidates, if anybody is eligible to serve, I don't think their application should prevent them from having an interview. This is a public official. This is like anybody can sign up and run a campaign and be elected. So I think it should kind of mirror how our elections work. So if you're eligible, you should be able to be able to go before the board with an interview. Maybe you look great on paper, or you don't look great on paper, but you interview well. So I think that opportunity should be for all eligible. And I also want to make sure that this board, we're going to have an opportunity as a board to decide the interview process, because I believe it should be an open and transparent process. I believe that the applications everybody's application that was submitted, and when we see them, that the whole community, they're public, that they're posted, the completed applications, so everybody in the community sees who's running or who's interested in the position, and that our interview process is done in public as well. Not just a committee meeting that's Brown Act, but I think it needs to be a public meeting and open for all. And that's the other.
It would probably have to be a special board meeting. Okay.
That's fine. Okay, and that's all I have for now.
So we're kind of stirring things around with different decisions here.
Yeah,
That's
well,
okay,
right
because
now, we
it's all
want to
kind of-
add the third person on the committee for sure. And
So as we think about what the committee's going to do versus the full board, because that has an impact on who that third person's going to be, I do think it's a continuum of how we can do it. I would not like it to be on the extreme where the committee does everything up to choosing the last person and presents that person to the board for approval. I think that's too extreme.
Okay.
And I think the full committee should be involved, not the full committee, but the full board should be involved in at least the last segment of reviewing resumes and interviewing. Now, if we wind up having 20 people, perhaps the committee would do the first pass and winnow it down to some number, 7 or 5 or 3 or something like that. But I do think the final pool, whatever they look like, should be a decision of the full board and not the committee, for what it's worth.
So what I'm hearing you say, Bruce, is that on the 26th of August, you would like that to be a special board meeting?
Special full.
And these would be the decisions made by the board.
Yes.
now, Michelle has indicated her recommendation that, if I got it right, Michelle, please correct me, that anyone who has applied and has been verified as being eligible would be interviewed that day.
Yes, on August
26?
26th. I mean, yes.
So as a matter of workability, there are 20.
Well, there's a lot of unknowns at this juncture. So if in fact we have 20, I would be exhausted trying to interview 20 people in one day. It would have to, in my opinion, spill over into a second special board meeting on Monday.
Is
What
it,
I'm
That's if we have 20.
Yeah, what I'm hearing though is three things. One is, what is the work of the board organization committee? What is the work of the full board? And then what happens if there's more than, and I'm just going to put out there, 5 candidates, or maybe even more than 3 candidates, or 4, 4 or more, or something like that. I think what I'm hearing is, and I'm hearing both the keeping everything public and, out for everyone to be a part of. In other words, see the applications, or, access who's applied, and have them all, everything happen in open board meetings, which all of these meetings would be open, to being effective and efficient with our time, and using the board organization committee structure to help with that, but not make the final decision, is what I'm hearing. Is that right?
But I'm also hearing that every applicant would be interviewed by the full board.
That's it. That's what I think Michelle's asking for, and I think we're also hearing what happens if there's 20.
Right.
It's different if there's 3.
is it, just given the timelines, is there any way to defer that decision?
It's a good idea.
Interviewing, I just hate to say, no matter what, we're interviewing everyone, if it's impractical, and we've done it, but we don't have the critical information until
The 17th,
the
right?
17th.
Well, actually, no, because we want to give Susan and her staff
give staff.
a chance to verify eligibility.
Right,
So
the
we've got to
19th,
give
right.
them the
And pull the
18th.
packets together for
Yeah.
the committee.
So practically speaking, the 19th. Well,
Yes,
Susan and her staff can certainly report to us,
Yep.
the number is X. At first blush, it appears all but one or all are.
yeah, but that wouldn't be till the 18th, and that would be too late to post a special board meeting.
Well, we only need one day. We only need
Correct.
24 hours.
24 hours, yep.
So we'll know
Okay.
the number by the 17th. So what
Yes.
we could do is keep a spot on the calendar where we might need to call a special board meeting on the 19th, because we can do that on the 18th.
Correct.
And then if we don't need to, we just don't do it.
I guess a good practical
Yeah, yep.
gives us some,
You're also still able to do a Zoom meeting because you've passed the resolution and continued to keep that up, so.
So I wouldn't be traveling each time we
Yeah.
gather.
no, and I think, for example, for the committee, I think this is one situation, and I am no fan of Zoom, but it could be that it just, people's calendars are going to be yours and mine, and the third person on the committee. For you, it's a big difference of being here at 2 o'clock or being at your computer at 2 o'clock. But that's,
I'm prone to wanting to meet in person on this particular subject, frankly. I don't mind doing the driving, because I think this is important, and I think sometimes we lose the flavor on Zoom. So I would like to really consider meeting live. And yes, I know I'm the one driving.
Well, I'd like to nominate, if Judy is interested in serving as that third committee member, I would nominate Judy. And knowing that these are open to everyone and that we're going to have a special meeting, or that there's going to be an opportunity for us to look at, for the full board, to look at all the applicants and interview.
I will second that.
am the lucky one. I don't know if I feel the same way Maggie does about driving, but.
To be
Well,
determined.
to be determined, to be determined.
Would you like to take an official vote on that? We have a first and a second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's done. I need to get in the weeds here on the 18th, okay? So, the deadline on the 17th will be when you get your mail delivery for the day, is that correct? Or it could come in by email
It could come in by email,
until midnight?
5 PM.
5 o'clock.
Okay,
So it could be handed in. it could be
Correct, mailed
it
in,
has to
arrive by 5.
or according.
Yeah.
okay, so
Good
is
clarification.
it reasonable for the board to ask staff to send us an email the night of the 17th on how many were received?
And making sure that that's fine to do. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so we'll get the number.
Should we add names and number, I mean, just,
Yeah.
if they have the information, names and the numbers and who the names are, just.
Then on the 18th, we would have to Zoom, I would think. It's the only way, well, we can't post a notice on the 17th that we're going to Zoom on the 18th.
What's on the
Because
18th?
I'm still not resolved on the recommendation to interview every applicant that's eligible versus a pre-screening and then a final interview. So the way it looks right now, on the 19th, we would review the eligible candidates and decide who's going to be interviewed. And then we would interview them the following week and then make our decision, and then that's it. But if we're going to interview all of them, depending again how many there are, which we won't know till the evening on the 17th, if there are, this isn't the number, but if there are 4, somehow we're going to have to agree, then we're going to interview all 4. I mean, I don't want to set a number now that's the number, the magic number, and say, okay, if there's 5, then we're going to interview them all, and if there's 6, we're not. I mean, you know, if that's what it's going to be. I personally would rather that we go ahead and post the notice on the 18th that we're going to have a special board, and that one would be by Zoom, and that would be dependent upon staff being able to double-check eligibility of everyone, and then get copies of the application scanned and distributed to all of us, so that on the 19th, we could meet via Zoom and do a paper screening,
The full board.
the full board.
So that would be a paper screen.
Madam Chair, I'm wondering if, I'm following you, completely following you. I'm wondering if there's one step that might be missing, but that
Yeah,
might just be
no.
my thinking, is the discussion around now, what do we want to do? So we have 2, we have 19. Is that what the special meeting is about, is to discuss how we want to go, given the number that, how the board would like to go, given the number?
Yeah, you're right,
Versus do
because
the
I
work?
just said, there's no way we can set what that number is right now, because if it's one more than that, we may just say, oh, okay, fine, you
And why
know,
would we set a number?
yeah.
Is-
We're either going to interview all of them or we aren't.
Yeah, that's the
question, and so when are we going to make that
That's why
decision?
I'm sitting here
So
confused.
we have a special board meeting on the 19th, and at the very least, we're going to do a paper scrub of resumes and applications. And at that meeting, we can also decide, but at that time we'll know the number, so we can decide whether the path forward from there. Are we going to do, you know, if the number is 50, we're probably going to have the org committee doing it all, and we can make that decision. If the number is 3, it's a board decision, and we could set that. So the 19th becomes a critical decision date based on actually what we know. in addition to a paper scrub. So that way we can stay flexible based on known data
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
for that day.
All right, that works. So we're kind of going to kick the can down the road until the 19th. Yeah, okay. And that will be a full board. And it'll be a special meeting. And I think it should, oh dear.
Would you like to scan the board to see availability on the 19th?
Yes,
Because this is new for everybody. It potentially could be the 18th. It could potentially be the 22nd. So you would want to have a quorum.
yes.
So we could start with the 19th. Everyone's getting their calendars, so we'll stop there for a minute.
Could be really any of those dates that next week, right? 22, 23, 24, or no?
Well, you would still, it depends. It depends on what the numbers, yeah.
I
So
have a conflict on the 19th,
you have the conflict.
and I would be probably more comfortable, and so would staff, if we moved it to Monday, the 22nd.
I second that.
What?
I second that.
22nd, so
22nd.
right now we're looking at the 22nd. We'd need 4 members to make a quorum happen, of course,
Yeah.
yeah.
22nd's infinitely better for me
Okay.
than the 18th or 19th.
Mary
Maybe
Beth?
we can Zoom Mary Beth in. Can we
1,
Zoom her
2,
in?
Bruce,
Is that
I
allowed,
can do today.
Austin?
3, 4. We've got 4, and with Michelle, you'd be 5.
But can we Zoom Mary Beth in?
Yeah.
Well, maybe she doesn't
Maybe
want
she doesn't
to.
want to.
Oh, I just assumed, I'm sorry.
Let me see if I can change
No,
those
no,
dates.
don't change
I'm
it.
just going to see my son.
So
Okay.
at this point, just, excuse me, Mrs. Frost, so
No,
it
that's
sounds
fine.
like Mr. Howell, everyone else is at this point available on the 22nd. Are you looking at a 2 o'clock time frame?
Yes,
Okay, so then we could move forward, Mrs. Cardy, without you making that process
Right.
decision? Yes. You would still have all the paperwork.
so the question is, given that we don't know what the number is it going to be Zoom or in person?
I still would like to be in person.
But the 22nd, we're not interviewing.
No.
No,
We're just doing a paper scrub and deciding
or not.
how, yeah, or not. Or have to, hopefully we get somebody.
That's right.
But if there's only 2, we're going to interview.
We have these delusions of grandeur here.
Yes,
On the 22nd via Zoom, we can
is the
decide.
decision. So let's say that the 22nd, sorry Maggie, we're going to lose this one, is going to be Zoom, and that's our paper screening. Okay.
But to be fair, Maggie, you think it'd be better if we did do it face to face, even if it was a paper screen?
Yeah, I do.
I heard it.
You have a lot of face-to-face time following that.
I hear you, Joe. Okay, so
Okay.
the 22nd is a Zoom meeting at 2 o'clock of a
Full
special
board.
board meeting,
Special board, full board,
Yep.
2 o'clock. Okay.
with the exception of Mrs. Carney.
And we will do paper screening
TBD.
and determine who gets interviewed, and it could be everybody gets interviewed.
Absolutely.
It's going to depend. It depends. Then we can plan that the interviews, it's sounding like the board would like to participate in all interviews. Is that what I'm hearing? Bruce, yes?
I would prefer that,
Okay.
but again, the number.
Based on the number?
No, we're already going to make it not be 50, so
So we
somehow.
just, is it practical to just, the interviews are not going to be set. We're all working on the same conclusion, and it's kind of a chicken and egg proposition.
Yep.
Scheduling the interviews, every interview, it has to be a time that works for each interviewee.
Correct.
The more interviews, more interviewees, the bigger the challenge. How long can they last? What's the gap? There's a lot of machinations
I
to
think-
get it to work.
I think, Joe, when we meet as a committee to determine our process next week, that could be part of our discussion.
Now, my understanding in these types of interviews is that you ask all candidates the same
same
interview
question.
questions. And you
Yes.
only ask a follow-up question if it's following the answer and just needs elaboration or something. You don't take a follow-up question and go off in another direction. So we should have some idea based on the questions we come up with what time frame they would take. So,
Mrs.
What-
Frost, if
yeah.
I can interrupt.
Yeah,
Just to
absolutely.
clarify on the 22nd at 2
Mm-hmm.
o'clock, it sounds like the actions that, there could be two,
Mm-hmm.
sounds like. One is, or maybe not two, but one is, you might paper screen and determine who will get interviews.
Mm-hmm.
Or you might paper screen and say, you know what, we need to have the board organization committee meet on the 23rd, 24th, or 25th. There's many here. Let's have, in other words, it could be a
I see what you're
process
saying.
determination or a candidate determination, one or the other. We just don't know.
Right.
We just don't know right today. We'll know better when you come to the 22nd.
yes,
Okay.
we'll know when we come,
Yeah,
but we won't know
No,
until
we're not coming, we're
the
Zooming.
7th, I mean Zooming.
right.
But we will have an idea on the 17th because we'll know the number.
Sure.
So we can say the probability is that.
Right. So either, coming out of the 22nd, either there will be a meeting on the 26th or 29th for interviews, because there'll be 3 people and we're interviewing, we're talking about that, or it'll be an action to ask the board organization committee meeting to, wow, there's a lot of applications here, can you go through the process on either the 23rd, 24th, 25th?
Right.
You
So
know,
we have to be the 24th because of those.
yeah, 23rd, 24th, and, here, that also would be determined on the 22nd. What's the criteria, what's the number that you're looking for?
Path forward.
The path forward, depending on what you see on the 22nd. So it's a bit of an open-ended
So
dialogue for the 22nd.
we're looking at positively a Zoom on the 22nd, more than likely interviews the 26th, 29th by the full board, and possibly pre-screening by the board organizational development committee.
Correct.
On the 24th, 25th.
23rd, 24th, probably.
23rd,
yes.
24th.
Yeah.
If we do that, I think we'd have to post it by the week before. I just
Yep.
have a question about timing.
Yeah.
For posting which now,
The
Anna?
board organization committee, if they decide on the 22nd to have the organization committee
Yes.
narrow it down,
Right.
We wouldn't
if
be
we
able
have
to
to
meet on
comply
the
with 72
23rd.
hours, that really
Do we
only
need
allows
to
them
do a special meeting of the board?
24.
Yeah, so we have 24 hours, and then it would need to be the
24th or 25th.
24th.
Okay.
Or if you
24th.
really want to do the 23rd, we could just call the
Let's just do
special,
the 24th.
special committee meeting now,
Right.
put it on the calendar to buy ourselves some.
Yeah.
And cancel.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, now keep in mind, okay, all right, this is just for the board if we have 50, for example, and then we turn it over to the board organization committee to meet and screen it
Screen.
down. So they're not going to have to talk to because I was thinking we can't schedule interviews that quickly, but they're not going to be. Okay. So we need to post a notice for this special board meeting now, and then can we pull it? How do we cancel a special
You don't have
board
to
meeting?
post it now. I mean, it's a 24-hour notice thing, so we
Yeah.
might have a little more information closer to that time. But yeah, I mean, we can cancel it if we need to.
Okay.
But do we have to post the board organization development committee meeting on the 24th prior to that meeting? Yes. Yeah, okay.
Question for council. If someone is eligible for this public seat, and, they don't have any conflicts, they're not an employee, and we reject an application and don't let them go through the full process, is there precedent for that we could be liable for discrimination or something like that?
Yeah, if it's for the wrong reasons, I guess.
Absolutely.
If there's some sort of like discriminatory reason, then
Right.
potentially, but
Open ourselves.
you've got a lot of discretion on your criteria, so.
And I think that may be what we need to focus on is if we have only 3 applicants, we're not going to make 3 positions. And if they're all eligible and they're all qualified, but we read their applications and clearly one of them stands out because of maybe their experience or something like that. I mean, at some point, we have to make a decision which ones we prioritize. So I don't think we'd be in trouble if that decision was made at the paper screening or after the interviewing, because it would be made on the same basis, that of experience, qualifications, that kind of thing.
Right, I mean, I'm just envisioning, if it's a protected class or
Right.
something, which this board would never do.
Which
like
we
that.
might not, we probably wouldn't know from the application unless they mention it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Michelle, does that help you?
It does. I've just been on search committees, and, for corporations, it's different than
Yeah.
now. This is the first time in the public, and there's so many rules, and be very careful about not being misconstrued. And I just think there's age discrimination. There's all sorts of reasons people can come up with, and I just don't want the county to be exposed.
Good question.
So I think where we are is to schedule at this point a tentative board organization committee meeting on the 24th. I know Joe, Mr. Howell and Mrs. Frost and Stany, you're looking at calendars to see if you're available. That might be pulled if it's not needed, but we could calendar that. And then when we post the information for candidates, we can already state that the interviews, we have that already on our application process, so the interviews are on these dates so that people can hold, there are no times, but the dates.
So Joe said something, I'm going to make sure, just check on it. So if a time is not convenient for one of the people that submitted his or her application, do we have to find a time to talk to that person, or do we say, you have to be available during these 2 blocks of time, figure it out?
May I answer that? On the application, we're going to see the interviews could be on August 26th or 29th, so we're telling them before they even fill out the application. So if they already know they're not available those 2 dates, I don't think they'd be eligible to apply. Yeah, that's one of the criteria.
Yeah, you got to be available for board meetings too.
Yes.
Oh, that's true, too.
Yeah, because we are in a time, we have to be within the time
Time
constraints.
specific. Yeah.
So one of the questions that might be helpful too is, because there's an or and an alternate, is part of this is your availability on the
Right.
26th and the 29th.
Yep.
Because if no one is available on the 29th, for example, or a quorum, or however, we don't want to give that as an alternative date.
So
And we need 4 of us.
Correct.
Yeah, the 26th is problematic for me, but I could probably meet till noon. Noon is about it on the 26th as far as my availability. 29th is wide open.
I'm fine on both dates. Mary Beth is fine on both dates. Bruce is fine. With
Michelle?
Maggie?
We're talking the 26th and the 29th?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm good.
And Michelle?
I'm good, and maybe we just meet in the morning on August 26th.
Yeah,
26th.
I would like to meet in the morning if we could.
Okay.
In person.
And these will have to be in person,
Yes.
because we're interviewing. I mean,
You can do them by Zoom, but it's
No,
probably
it's probably in
preferable
person.
in
Somebody that looks
person.
good
Oh, I
on
don't like
Zoom. Because that's the way we do things now.
Maybe we interview them live, and then we have them go in
Yes.
front of a monitor.
yeah, we all come here, but they sit in a
It's a
different
two-part
room.
interview.
Have them all on the screen at the same time, like, all in squares, so we can see who looks better in the box.
All right, so AM on the 26th
Yes.
So before, we have to conclude before noon on the 26th, it
We
seems
could
like,
adjourn by noon.
adjourn.
Sure.
Would
yeah.
that be
And
comfortable?
then the
That would
29th
be very
is,
helpful.
is open, okay.
Okay. Oh, my goodness.
We're doing it. We're
August is
doing
filling up.
Just about more meetings.
it.
August is going to be a very busy month. Okay, if we're going to meet in person that much, and for those periods of times, are we dog friendly?
Yeah, bring Nero.
Can somebody watch Nero for me and give him his pills? Oh, geez.
I think so. I
I think you should bring
I
Nero.
support.
I can't get him in the car,
Oh, you can't?
no,
Oh.
Because of his leg?
because of his legs.
Oh.
Because he's so big and fat.
Can you get someone to lift him into the car and then one of these guys?
And then we'll
can take him out?
volunteer Joe and Bruce to flip the dog.
Other duties, as they say.
Yeah,
Do you have a ramp for him?
he can't even, no, it
Do
wouldn't
we,
work.
where do we, Mary Beth, the other question.
Go ahead.
Just trying to think of the most interviewee-friendly format and venue. Is it kind of seems to me this is I don't know, there are a lot of us and they're one of them, so it can be imposing no matter what, but kind of think the formal board meeting
No.
is too much. I mean,
I don't think we should do it.
yeah, there's a formality to that, so I guess this is the other option, and there's a lot of flexibility as to how this room is set up.
And the interviews would be open to the public as well?
Correct.
So we could have a gallery. Now,
But the board or committee can decide kind of how to do
yeah,
that.
Right.
so
Oh, that's
Maggie
right,
put
yeah.
that on her
Yes.
agenda. That's an interesting point. Since it's open to the public, could another applicant come and sit in on somebody else's interview?
They
Why
can,
not?
yes, they can.
Why not?
Wow.
The way I've seen it done is for the board president
Uh-huh.
to politely request, but not demand,
Right.
that those
The
who
applicants.
will soon be applying not sit in on.
Yeah, because they would get a head start on the questions.
Usually they do. I've seen these.
Even
at
with,
the school
but the
districts.
first one gets the questions cold, the other ones could all know what the questions and the answers were. I don't like that.
But that's legal. But again, I think if you ask nice enough, which you're very, very good
Just
at.
a thing on
And
courtesy.
if they refuse to, that's like.
It's a courtesy. No, it wouldn't.
That's a big minus for their candidates.
Okay,
These
so
will
they'll
be
remind me to do that.
interviews,
I'd say 20 minutes.
20 minutes.
20 minutes
And
because
a
if we
10-minute
say a half
break.
an hour.
Questions, and then the interviewers that would be asking the questions, round robin.
It'll be round robin.
And
Yeah.
are the questions, I mean, I know this is for the committee, but just, it's helpful to get people's experiences, thoughts. Are the questions provided ahead of time to
No.
the applicants? I assume not, but I just want to see if anybody thought of it.
Well, I think that's a process question, because if you're agreeing on questions and you're meeting in public to do that,
that's right.
you know, it seems, but let me ask Austin. We need to get that to you.
Yeah, we don't need to know that right
Right.
now, but yeah, those are two very, I really don't think another applicant should be in the audience. I don't think that's
Kosher.
fair.
I'll look at that, come back
And,
with some options.
and then whether the questions go out in advance or not. If we cannot do that, I would prefer it, but
Yeah.
because the work that we do here is spontaneous for the most part. We don't know what we're going to hear when we have a parent come forward for a appeal or expulsion or a charter school or whatever. And, I think we need to know that someone can handle spontaneity.
It's kind of nice in my experience if you do both. 2 questions they know about ahead of time, 3
That they
questions.
can prepare for.
know about. Now, if they get a hold of it because there was no process to determine the questions,
Mhm.
that kind of blows the whole thing.
Mhm.
But
And then because it's a noticed meeting, it will be recorded. So I think we need to provide that information to the candidates in advance so they're prepared for it.
You have to notify someone when they're being recorded.
In advance.
That's a really good point. I think
Yeah.
everyone has,
Interviews will be recorded.
yeah, We want everyone.
audio,
We
not
want
video.
everyone to know.
Yeah.
We don't want anybody
Be
to
surprised.
get into the process, have a good faith intent in doing this and realize there's this craziness involving the 2010 map and the 2020 map, or I'm very personal, I'm a private person, I was not aware. So
So if we
as
could
long as we
coordinate that.
give everyone full
Yes.
disclosure, then if any of those things, or if they can't interview during that period or be here on September 1st, if they're selected, there's some disqualifying things. And as long as they know ahead of time, they shouldn't be disappointed.
Can I just confirm, is staff responsible for determining the eligibility of the prospective trustee residing in that area? Or is that something that's going to come up again in the paper screening? Will that be done by staff?
Well, we're, several answers to that that apply. One is we're asking the applicant to actually check, so that's one. The second one is our team will check as well, as part of the support to the board for your paper screening.
Okay.
So we will be doing that.
Because we can see the pitfalls of the applicant
Yeah.
trying to determine that, and then the elections office would have to be factored in there somewhere.
Yes, we will be seeking that support and verification by county elections.
Okay. So by the time we get those, the paper screening won't be about that level of eligibility. Okay.
We'll want to provide that information. I'm assuming that as applications come in, we'll be checking along the way, but, you know, sometimes they all come in on the last day at 5 o'clock. So we'll do our very best to get those, now we have to the 22nd
Okay.
to do that.
I have one question.
Sure.
For our press release tomorrow, do you think we could include the application so people can even start thinking about it, even though the process hasn't
You're
started?
taking away the committee's work.
I mean, I know, but this is the press
Pretty much
release that's going out
done that.
tomorrow, so this is the first introduction about
Right.
this position.
I know,
That's okay?
but we're not ready. We haven't reviewed the application yet.
Oh, I thought the application was,
It's in draft form.
That's
It's in
draft.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
draft.
What we
Oh,
do-
sorry, I didn't know that was a draft. I like it. Okay. It was a CSBA. It came right from CSBA.
It's a draft. What we would like to share is the, recognition of Peter, some recognition of
yes.
Peter and his service, but also that the board has determined that they'll have a special appointment, and that applications, the window will be open beginning Monday, August 8th at 8 o'clock, or 8:30, or, some a time, so that everyone knows that it will be open, and that they can have that period of time. Okay? Yeah.
Very good.
Okay.
And then also, may I recommend that we have paid advertising as well for this?
That would
That would
be,
be the committee's decision as well.
Where would you put paid
We have what?
Paid advertising, because press releases sometimes cannot, be picked up, depending on space, and I think just in terms of noticing people,
Okay.
rather than just through press releases, that we budget for a advertising, especially in the trustee area.
Yeah.
I would think Newshawk is pretty well followed, perhaps, in the Goleta area. And that might be a place where we could put a column ad on the right-hand side.
could be. One option would be to see who picks it up starting the 27th, which is
Exactly.
tomorrow, 28th, 29th.
Okay.
And then when the board organization committee meets, do we select a date for the board organization committee on the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd? We can do that now. And they can say, okay, given the exposure, whether it's minimal or a lot, perhaps
Yeah.
that's when they can determine
Yeah.
the recommendation
I think that's a good
and bring
idea.
it to the board on the 4th.
Yeah.
So I'm puzzling on how we would spend money to advertise just in that trustee area.
Right.
Because if you put it in the newspaper,
Yeah, it's going to
That's
cover
right.
the whole area.
you put a whole lot more people than that.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
right.
Maybe that's okay.
80-some
We got-
thousand.
I mean,
No local papers, like we have the San Ynez Valley News, that would definitely go
But
in.
they don't have a local
They don't have a local paper. Santa Barbara News Press?
Maybe.
That's all of
And
Santa
the
That's
Barbara.
all,
Independent.
that's throughout the county.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Social, maybe just social media with the TA in the box.
But Newstalk would likely run it.
Uh-huh.
think
As
they're
a
gonna
as
run
a
it.
press
Yeah.
release,
Yeah.
so you get the same.
Yeah, it's
They'll-
online.
they'll run it
analytics
for
You're
you.
talking about the print.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not everybody's online.
That's
And
true.
they have the print.
That's true.
How about Santa Barbara Independent? Everybody, people up
Those
here
are
read Santa Barbara.
countywide.
Yeah, but that,
How about a deferral of that decision until the regular board meeting on the 4th? Because then there'll still be time to either pay for an ad or not pay for an ad by the time the application is ready. Does that sound okay? Okay, because we can see the coverage between now and when the board organization committee meets and before the regular board meeting. And then we can put it on the agenda for action and take a motion and go from there. Okay, great.
thank you.
So for the board organization committee on next week, we have dates set aside. It could be the 1st or the 2nd or 3rd to really refine and finalize the drafts that are in front of you. Mrs. Daney, you had said you prefer in person. That one, if you're reviewing paperwork, or it could be on Zoom. So that's something for sounds like Mrs. Frost, Mr. Howell, Mrs. Daney to decide a date and format.
I'm available all day on that Monday, the 1st, and I'm available all day Wednesday. Tuesday, the 2nd, I have a doctor's appointment that I cannot miss.
Yeah.
Tuesday is out for me as well. Monday I've got all day. Wednesday I could do afternoon,
That's
1 o'clock after.
Monday works.
Okay.
Let's do Monday.
So what time and format? 2 o'clock?
2
Let's
o'clock,
do it.
and can we do it in person? Because there's going to be a lot of discussion. We can come to your house.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll make Joe drive.
Yeah, Joe, can you drive to Santa Maria?
Just what you want to
So she
do.
can doctor her dog?
So I can get him his pills?
I'm physically able.
But do you want to?
Do I want
do
to?
not
No.
You're no fun.
What if you two are in one, that doesn't accomplish it? If I'm on a screen and you're at a coffee table,
We'll meet halfway at the county office in Buellton. So nobody has to drive home now. Sorry, Jim.
Well, county office in Buellton,
There isn't one.
But there
Or
was
the high school.
we have had an office space, but like an individual office's space, so not a county office site. Yeah, but we could probably find an open room.
Randy would give you.
I think we might know people who could help us find a room.
Could we do earlier
Sure,
on Monday?
I can do any time Monday. How about you, Joe?
sure, what's,
10 o'clock in the morning?
sure.
Does that work for you, Judy? What's your timing on your pills?
I'm sorry to be such a slug. Blah, blah, blah. Could we just move it up to 1 o'clock?
Okay, 1 o'clock?
Yeah.
Does that work for you, Joe?
Yeah, 1:30, we're negotiating everything.
Oh, my
It
gosh.
is- I can make one work if 1:30 is awkward. I've got to move something, but I can do that. So 1 o'clock here?
Monday.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make that work.
Would 1:15 work?
Oh, my God.
No, if,
Yeah,
I'm
I just,
not the one driving, so if 1
Yeah,
o'clock,
it's not
I'll
1
make one work.
okay.
Okay, 1 o'clock.
And you'll have a room for us?
Yes, we'll ensure that we have a room.
One thing I
And
know
I'm
without
assuming you and I
asking,
will be chatting frequently?
We sure will.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will make it as a statement, not as a question, because I know the answer, that
What's that?
all of these dates have been written down and will be Provided to us by Anna.
Yeah, I think
Thank
what
God
will be,
for Anna.
what will be helpful is, or will this be helpful? So for the board organization committee meeting at 1 o'clock on the 1st, we'll clean up the calendar
There you
so
go.
that then it would be
Right.
all, so that would be for Monday the 1st. We'll be working off of those, and then for the regular board meeting on the 4th, we'll clean it up one more time. It'll be more of a final calendar. Okay. The one thing that I think the full board should know on for the 4th is we'll of course provide the materials. It may not be in super advance because we'll just have to get the
That's
time,
fine.
get those to you as soon as we can. Yeah. Good.
Okay.
So, Mrs. Frost, there are a few other items on the agenda.
Yes, there are.
and see if there's other.
We're going to move on. I was
Mrs.
focusing
Foster,
on my
can I
calendar.
just go back to the calendar for you, Judy?
Yeah,
Would it be helpful for us to move up our special meeting on the 19th to 1 o'clock instead of 2? To accommodate you?
Nero.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, throughout.
It just,
It's
what
the
it is he
22nd,
gets
yeah.
pain pills, and
I
I
know.
feel so
I know.
guilty if
I
I'm
know.
late giving him his
No,
pain
and that's
pills.
why I'm posing the question.
Yeah, because
Would
that's
1
an
o'clock
hour
help?
less he'd have to
Yeah.
work. I mean, wait.
Well, on the 22nd, you guys decided to have it on Zoom.
Right.
Well, it's Zoom anyway.
On the
Oh.
22nd.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay.
Oh, my God, okay.
Yeah, we need a
And then we're in the
calendar.
morning on the 26th. And on the 24th, do we want to do it at 1 o'clock?
And the 26th will be in person.
Right.
And we're holding the 29th as well.
Yeah, and that would be in person.
Right.
Is that also in the morning?
Well, the 26th, we're going to try and do in the morning. But the 24th, if in fact we have to do a screening, Mrs. Frost?
That would be a paper screening of just the three of us? That's right, if we have too many. Could we do that Zoom? No?
Well, that would require getting a packet from Anna so that we all had the data.
Okay, let's make it 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock on the 24th,
Yeah.
here.
So how about we take all of this information, put it on a new draft, and then we can, with fresh eyes, look at
Thank you.
that on the 1st?
That would be
as
great.
a committee, and then, again, fresh eyes on the 4th.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Great,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, and we have one more item on the agenda, and it is to make a nomination, if we choose to, for the California County Boards of Education Officer Nomination Form. And we can nominate people for president-elect, vice president, or treasurer, and we can nominate multiple people, if board members, if we choose. Right now, Michelle, you're serving as the treasurer. Is that correct?
Yes.
And would you like to continue? Is that?
I would love to continue. I've been serving for about 5 months now, and it's a very time-intensive, but I enjoy the work. And and the organization, thanks to Susan, she introduced it to the board, and we had that Masters in Governance training. And I've gone to several workshops and conferences, and I was appointed back in March because I failed to fill a position, a vacancy. And I would like to continue, and I ask for your nomination.
I nominate Michelle.
I second.
Thank you.
She likes
Yes,
going
go
to
to more
meetings.
meetings. And we have a second,
I seconded it.
and discussion. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, you're
Thank you
done.
very
And
much.
Susan, will you fill out the paperwork for
We'll
that?
be sure to turn that in by July 31st. You got it.
Okay. Anyone else interested in being nominated for an office? Not treasurer, we're not going to put something up against Michelle. No, okay. So that takes care of item number 9 and item number 10. I think we're going to get some more information on this one.
You know, what I can fill in is that the CCBE, California County Boards of Education, will occasionally ask for votes of the membership, and so they're seeking a representative of our county board to provide that vote when it's necessary. And so I think should the board want to nominate an individual to be a voting member, I think one of the things we want to put forward, you know, on the table is there's a difference when an individual is voting for, yes, I approve the minutes, you know, you know, and then there's another time when they're voting on behalf of the board. So I think that it might be important if you do nominate someone to be a voting member that we're just clarification on, you know, are we seeking an individual to, is it that they're going to be there voting for themselves or voting for the board? When it's for voting for the board, we ask that the individual seek the opinion of or the vote of the board before actually voting. It's again different when it's on minutes or other, if that's accurate, if that's
What's in,
It's involved.
is this what's involved? Is the person, is it an ongoing appearance, participation, or is it rather speaking on behalf of our board?
I
Go ahead.
can give you
Yes.
that. Well, they have their annual conferences, and that's where usually the general membership meets, and so you usually have a representative from every county, all 58 counties there. And there are certain items on the agenda where they have the general membership vote, and then, like the board of directors, like voting for a regional director for our region. You would, one of our members would vote for that person. And then also, when there's a bylaws change, and the reason why I can't be a representative because I'm the bylaws chairperson. We are amending the bylaws. So at this December election, there will be, there'll be a vote of the general membership. So it's one vote per county. And also when there's any policy platforms that they're going to the legislature, I can have a representative. And what's really good is that their focus is on rural counties and really getting the support for rural counties. But if there's a policy position and they want to have full support and they want general membership to vote to, that just gives a lot more clout when they go before the legislator and they're lobbying for certain educational issues.
Are most of those votes done online?
They have to be in person. So there is
And then how often do they meet? Every month, quarter, whatever, to have these elections?
Yeah, there's two major meetings, and these are the conferences. There's the CCBE conference in September, and you don't have to go all 3 days. You can just go to the general membership breakfast.
Okay.
And then it's typically always in Monterey, and then the CSBA meetings are in either San Diego or Sacramento. They alternate so they can get a lot of participation from all over the county, and those are in December. So those are two major meetings. I don't think there's a requirement that you have to be there at all of those, but it's an opportunity. So maybe if there's an issue in particular, if there's bylaws that we think we need to take a stand. But I don't think from my experience, I don't think every county is represented at every meeting. It's not required.
And so do you meet monthly aside from these two conferences?
Not the representatives. The executive committee meets monthly, and we meet on Zoom.
Okay, and there's no
No.
voting requirement?
No.
Okay.
So it's just, I think if we had a representative, and if I'm kind of following along, I could come to you and say, hey, this is something I think that we really should be participating in, and we should have our voice. That might help. That might be just having a representative on hand, and I don't know if it's 2 or 4 years. Probably.
That I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But we can always change. We can we can pass the baton.
What is yours?
Mine is 2. So I nominate Judy because she's going to be at the conference anyway.
I'm not going to commit to San Diego or Sacramento in December for 2 years.
Okay, and we haven't had representation ever, so I think they were asking for counties to, but I'm there, so I'm a voice.
You're there, you're
Yeah.
But we have
I'll let you
to,
know, and I'll keep you informed.
So we don't have to pick somebody now.
No.
Michelle can give us a heads up saying, 2 months from now, there's a big vote, it's really important to Santa Barbara County, we need to elect somebody from our board to
Okay.
represent us. So I think we could do that.
Yeah, I think we have until December, so we have time.
so there must not be
This
anything
is-
in September that's coming up.
No, I don't think so. I believe it's just
All right.
September or December, so we do have time. It's just the treasurer position I needed.
Okay, we'll do that.
Okay, we'll put that on hold.
So,
Okay.
do you need a motion to table the decision on a
Yep.
representative? I'll make that motion.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Then the only other item is I need a motion for adjournment. And remember, our next meeting on August 4th is at 4:15.
Oh, that's right.
And Mary Beth made a movement, move to adjourn.
Second. I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, we're adjourned.